Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starbourne and watched the colony burn. Not really burn, he corrected himself. The Krell forces were too civilized for that. They used precision weapons that disabled power grids without destroying buildings. They gave warnings before every strike. They even allowed the civilians 3 full days to evacuate. This was war by the Galactic. Rules, clean, organized, polite. Jake hated every second of it. Sir, the colony has transmitted their surrender, Lieutenant Amy Carter said from her station. Her voice was steady, professional, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. She was human too. She understood. Acknowledged, Jake replied. He turned to Admiral Kreshtar, the Zolothian commander who led this sector of the Coalition fleet. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the bridge lights. 4 eyes tracked multiple screens at once. A textbook resolution, Kreshtar announced to the bridge crew. The Krell followed proper protocol. We will respond in kind. Prepare a counter-offensive proposal for the Council. We should have our response ready in approximately 60 days. 60 days. Jake's jaw tightened. Terran Outpost 7 had 2,000 people. 53 had died because they refused to abandon their homes. 53 humans who thought someone would help them faster than 2 months. Admiral, request permission to speak freely, Jake said. Kreshtar's head tilted in what might have been amusement. Of course, Commander Morrison. You have served well these past 3 years. Speak. Earth would respond differently to this attack. The bridge went quiet. Several alien officers turned to look at him. Kreshtar's 4 eyes focused on Jake with what looked like curiosity. How so? The Admiral asked. We wouldn't wait 60 days. We'd mobilize every available ship and hit them back within a week. Hard enough that they'd think twice about attacking again. Kreshtar made a sound like clicking stones. Jake had learned this was Zolothian laughter. Commander, your species is young. You have been part of the Coalition for only 15 years. The Accord of Civilized Warfare has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years. It works because we all follow the same rules. Escalation is controlled. Casualties are minimized. Wars end in negotiation, not destruction. And if the Krell attack again while we're preparing our 60-day response? They will not. That would violate the Accord. They will wait for our countermove, then respond to that. This is how civilized species conduct warfare. Jake wanted to argue more, but he knew it was pointless. He had been through this conversation a dozen times in his years with the Coalition. They simply could not understand the human concept of total war. To them, war was like a game of chess played across star systems, formal, structured, safe. Permission to return to my quarters, Admiral, Jake said. Granted. Rest well, Commander. Tomorrow we begin planning our response. Jake left the bridge and walked through the corridors of the Starbourne. The ship was a marvel of Coalition engineering, home to representatives from 15 different species. He nodded to a Threxian engineer and stepped aside for a group of Valoran scientists. After 15 years, humans had integrated well into galactic society, maybe too well, Jake thought. He reached his quarters and found Dr. Nathan Brooks waiting outside his door. The older man looked tired. Nathan was Earth's civilian liaison to the Coalition, a historian who had spent decades studying galactic culture. I heard about the colony, Nathan said as they entered Jake's room. 53 dead. Krell followed every rule. Coalition will take 60 days to respond. Jake poured himself a drink from the small supply of Earth whiskey he kept. Tell me again why we agreed to this system. Nathan sat down heavily. Because when we joined the Coalition, we were alone. One species among hundreds. We needed allies, trade, technology. The price was accepting their way of doing things. Their way gets our people killed. In small numbers. By galactic standards, 53 casualties in a colony raid is remarkably low. Nathan paused. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about Earth history. About how we would have handled this. Jake took a drink. World War II, Pearl Harbor. They hit us on a Sunday morning. We hit them back so hard that within 4 years their empire was ash. That's how humans fight wars, Nathan. We don't do it politely. That's exactly why the Coalition is nervous about us, Nathan said quietly. Do you know what I found in the Coalition Historical Archives? In 10,000 years of recorded warfare, the total death toll across all conflicts is approximately 40 million beings. Do you know how many humans died in our wars in just the 20th century alone? Jake did know. Every human officer in the Coalition knew. It was the number that made the other species watch humanity with a mixture of respect and fear. Over 100 million, Jake said. More deaths in 1 century than they've had in 10,000 years. Exactly. They think we're barbaric. And maybe they're right. Maybe their way is better. Their way left 53 people dead because reinforcements will take 60 days. Nathan had no answer for that. The next morning, Jake was summoned to Admiral Kreshtar's ready room. He expected another briefing on the response plan. Instead, he found the Admiral watching a news feed from Earth. Commander, are you aware of the situation developing on your homeworld? Kreshtar asked. Jake looked at the screen. Protests, millions of humans gathered in cities. Across Earth, the headlines scrolled past. Justice for Outpost 7, no more waiting. Protect our people. I've been monitoring our news, Jake admitted. People are angry. They are calling for immediate military action. Several of your government representatives have given speeches demanding that Earth respond independently of Coalition protocols. That's not surprising, Admiral. Humans don't like waiting when our people are in danger. Kreshtar turned his 4 eyes on Jake. The Council is concerned. There is talk that Earth might take unauthorized action. This would be a severe violation of Coalition law. Your planet could face sanctions, even expulsion. Maybe some humans think that's worth it. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully, as if explaining something to a child. Commander Morrison, you must understand. The Accord exists for a reason. Before it, the galaxy was constantly at war. Species destroyed each other. Entire civilizations were wiped out. The Accord brought peace by making war predictable and limited. If your species refuses to follow these rules, you threaten that peace. With respect, Admiral, you've never fought a species like the Krell without the Accord protecting you. You've never had to fight for survival, and you have? Kreshtar's tone was sharp now. Commander, I have 400 years of military service. I have commanded fleets in 30 campaigns. Do not presume to lecture me about warfare. Jake stood at attention. No disrespect intended, sir? I'm simply saying that humans have a different perspective on what war means. Yes, Kreshtar said coldly. You come from a violent world where your species spent millennia killing each other. We know your history, Commander. We know about your world wars, your genocides, your nuclear weapons. This is precisely why the Council insists you follow the Accord. We cannot allow your barbaric impulses to infect the civilized galaxy. The words stung, but Jake kept his face neutral. Understood, Admiral. I hope so. Because if Earth takes independent action, there will be consequences. Return to your duties, Commander. Jake left the ready room with his mind racing. He understood both sides. The Coalition had built something remarkable, a galaxy where wars were limited and peace was the norm. But they had done it by making war so structured and slow that it barely resembled real conflict. Humans knew better. Humans knew that sometimes peace came at too high a price. His communicator buzzed. A priority message from Earth, coded, personal. Jake ducked into an empty observation room and opened it. Lieutenant. Amy Carter's face appeared on the screen. She was in civilian clothes, somewhere on Earth. Jake, I'm home on leave. You need to see what's happening here. This isn't just protests anymore. The government is mobilizing. Quietly, but it's happening. They're calling up reserves. Moving fleet assets. I think Earth is going to act. Amy, that would be suicide. The Coalition would cut us off completely. I know, but I've been talking to people. Military people. Government people. They're saying the same thing you said on the bridge. We can't let the Krell keep attacking while we wait for the coalition to have committee meetings. She paused. There's a name for it. Terra Protocol. Emergency Authorization for Independent Military Action. Jake, I think they're going to use it. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach, fear and something else. Something that felt dangerously like hope. When? He asked. Soon, maybe days. I wanted you to know. Because when it happens, the coalition is going to look at every human in their service and wonder whose side we're on. The screen went dark. Jake stared at his reflection in the blank display. He thought about Admiral Kreshtar's words. Barbaric impulses. Violent species. 10,000 years of civilized warfare, and he thought about 53. Humans who died waiting for civilization to save them. The choice was coming. He could feel it. And he already knew which side he would choose. The Krell attacked again 3 weeks later. Then again. Then again. 4 human colonies in 6 weeks. Each attack followed the accord perfectly. Warnings given. Evacuations permitted. Infrastructure preserved. Minimal casualties, but casualties nonetheless. 20 here. 30 there. A dozen somewhere else. The numbers added up. 217 humans dead. The Coalition Council met to discuss the situation. They formed committees. They drafted proposals. They debated proper response protocols. The Krell kept attacking. Commander Jake Morrison watched it all from the starboard, and felt something break inside the human part of the coalition. He saw it in the messages from home, in the faces of human crew members, in the silence that fell over them when news of another attack arrived. They're testing us, Lieutenant Amy Carter said one evening in the mess hall. She had returned from Earth leave 2 weeks ago. She seemed different now, harder. The Krell know the coalition won't stop them fast enough. So they're taking everything they can before the bureaucracy catches up. Jake nodded. Around them, other human crew members listened quietly. There were 15 humans serving on the starboard. All of them wore coalition uniforms. All of them had taken oaths to serve the galactic peace. All of them were thinking the same thing. Captain Lisa Jennings is being recalled to Earth, someone mentioned. Jennings commanded one of the 3 human vessels that operated independently within Coalition space. Both the other captains, too. All our independent ships are going home. That's not standard procedure, Amy said. No, Jake agreed. It's not. They all knew what it meant. But nobody said it out loud. Not yet. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. New Terra was a colony of 50,000 humans. A real settlement, not just an outpost. It had schools and parks and families. When the Krell fleet arrived in orbit, they followed the accord as always. 3 days' notice. Evacuation transport standing by. Precision weapons only. The evacuation went smoothly. 50,000 people were a lot to move, but humanity had gotten efficient at abandoning their homes. The transports launched on schedule. The colony defense forces surrendered properly. Everything followed the rules. Then a Krell strike team found a school that was still occupied. 200 children with their teachers, sheltering in a basement. The building had been cleared according to coalition sensors. But human children were smaller than the sensors expected. The mistake was understandable. The Krell commander contacted the school. Gave them 30 minutes to evacuate. The children lined up and began walking toward the transport ships. They were too slow. The deadline passed while they were still evacuating. By accord rules, the deadline was absolute. The Krell followed procedures. They destroyed the building. 147 children died. 19 teachers. The video reached Earth in hours. A teacher's personal camera, uploading automatically to the network. It showed children running. Showed them crying. Showed them dying. The galaxy watched humanity break. President Helen York addressed Earth from the Capitol. Jake watched it in his quarters on the starboard. The president looked older than her 60 years. Her voice was steady but cold. For 15 years, we have been good members of the Galactic Coalition. We have followed their laws, adopted their customs, fought their wars their way. We did this because we believed in peace, because we believed in civilization, because we wanted to be better than our history." She paused. Her hands gripped the podium. Today, 147 human children were murdered. The Krell followed every rule. The Coalition will meet to discuss appropriate responses. They will form committees and draft proposals and debate for months while more of our people die. Another pause. Jake found himself holding his breath. No more. Earth hereby invokes Terra Protocol. Authorization 77 Alpha. Humanity will respond to aggression against our people using our own methods, our own timeline, and our own rules. To the Galactic Coalition, we respect your laws, but we will not let them kill us. To the Krell Empire, you wanted war. Now you will learn what that word really means. To our people across the stars, come home or stand ready. This is not a coalition action. This is humanity unleashed. The broadcast ended. Jake sat in silence for a long moment. Then his communicator buzzed. Admiral Kreshtar wanted to see him immediately. The Admiral's ready room was crowded. The entire senior staff was there. Every species represented on the Starborn. All of them looked worried. Commander Morrison, Kreshtar began without preamble, your government has just committed an act of unprecedented aggression. They have rejected coalition authority and declared independent military action. This is unacceptable. With respect, Admiral, they declared self-defense. By rejecting the accord. By threatening to wage war without limitations. Do you understand what this means? Kreshtar's 4 eyes blazed. For 10,000 years, we have had peace because everyone followed the same rules. Your species has existed in space for barely 2 centuries. You think you know better than 10 millennia of civilized society? Jake chose his words carefully. I think we know what happens when you follow rules against an enemy that's willing to kill children. The Krell action, while tragic, was within accord parameters. The deadline is absolute. Everyone knows this. Everyone except the children who couldn't run fast enough. That is war, Commander. There are always casualties. The accord minimizes them. Does it? Jake felt something snap inside him. All the weeks of watching, waiting, holding back. 217 dead in 6 weeks. The coalition response is still in committee. How many more will die while you debate? Far fewer than will die if we abandon the accord, Kreshtar said coldly. I have seen uncontrolled warfare, Commander. Before your species even reached your own moon, I watched 2 civilizations destroy each other completely. Billions dead. Entire worlds rendered lifeless. That is what happens without rules. Then maybe the rules need to change. The rules are not the problem. The problem is species who think violence solves everything. Kreshtar stood to his full height. Commander Morrison, you are hereby ordered to denounce your government's actions, publicly on the record. Or you will be relieved of duty. The room went silent. Every eye was on Jake. He thought about his oath to the coalition, about 3 years of service on the Starborn, about the friendships he had made with aliens from a dozen worlds. He thought about 147 children. I can't do that, Admiral. Then you are relieved of command, effective immediately. You will be confined to quarters pending transportation back to Earth. You are dismissed. Jake removed his coalition insignia and placed it on the Admiral's desk. He saluted once, then turned and walked out. Lieutenant Amy Carter was waiting in the corridor. She had tears in her eyes. Without a word, she removed her own insignia and followed him. By the time they reached the human quarters section, all 15 human crew members had resigned. Word spread through the ship quickly. Before the day was over, the Coalition Council issued an emergency decree. All human personnel in Coalition service were to be returned to Earth. Immediately, humanity had been expelled from the galaxy. Jake and the others were transported to a neutral station to await Earth ships. The station was crowded with humans from all over Coalition space. Thousands of them. Military personnel, scientists, traders, diplomats, all coming home. In the station's common area, Jake found Dr. Nathan Brooks. The old historian looked devastated. 15 years, Nathan said quietly. We spent 15 years building relationships, learning from them, teaching them about us. All gone in a day. Was it worth it? Jake asked. Following their rules while our people died? I don't know anymore. Nathan pulled up a data feed on his tablet. But I know what's coming. I've spent my whole life studying human military history. The Coalition has no idea what they're about to see. The feed showed Earth orbit. Even from the station, they could see the activity. Ships moving. Huge ships that had been listed as civilian transports in Coalition databases. Ships that were now deploying weapons arrays. How many ships does Earth have? Someone asked. Nathan checked his data. Coalition records show 12 military vessels, 5 exploration ships, about 200 civilian transports, and actually, Nathan's smile was grim. We've been in space for 200 years. Most of that time we were alone? No Coalition protection. No Accord, just us in the dark. What do you think we built out there? Nobody answered. They all knew. Humanity had been preparing for the worst since the first human left Earth's atmosphere. The Coalition had seen what humans wanted them to see. Peaceful traders. Eager students. Cooperative allies. They had never seen the arsenal. Captain Lisa Jennings arrived at the station 2 days later. Her ship, the Liberty, docked with a dozen others. All human vessels, all returning from various points in Coalition space. She found Jake in the observation deck. Commander Morrison, she said. She was a tall woman with gray hair and steady eyes. I understand you resigned your commission. The Admiral gave me a choice. I made it. Good, because I have orders from Earth Command. They're assembling a response fleet. They want experienced officers who know Coalition tactics and technology. She handed him a data chip. Your new commission. If you want it. Jake looked at the chip, then at the ships gathering in the space beyond the station, human ships. Military ships that had been hiding in plain sight for where the message went out to every human colony at the same time. 2 words that changed everything. Condition black. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Liberty as the galaxy woke up to what those words meant. Within 24 hours, civilian transports across human space began their transformations. Cargo sections opened to reveal fighter bays. Mining equipment detached to expose missile pods. Scientific vessels activated. Weapon systems that had been hidden in plain sight for years. The Coalition had believed humans operated 200 civilian ships. They were wrong. Humanity operated 200 warships disguised as civilian vessels. And those were just the ones in space. How long until we reach Krell space? Captain Lisa Jennings asked her navigation officer. 36 hours at maximum burn, Captain. Make it 30. I want to hit them before they know we're coming. Jake stood at the tactical station. Amy Carter worked beside him, her fingers flying over controls that coordinated data from a dozen ships in their battle group. This was nothing like serving on the Starborn. No multiple species, no careful protocols. Just humans doing what humans did best. Captain, we're receiving reports from the other strike groups, Amy said. Groups 2 and 3 are ahead of schedule. Group 4 encountered a Coalition patrol and avoided contact. Groups 5 and 6 are converging on the Krell shipyards at Sector 7. Good, Lisa said. What about intelligence? Agent Kyle Sanders has been operating in Krell space for 2 weeks, Jake reported. Kyle was part of Earth's intelligence network, another thing the Coalition never knew existed. He's identified 17 priority military targets and disabled 3 defensive satellites already. Lisa nodded. Helm, plot a course for the Krell military station at Draken 3. That's our primary target. Yes, ma'am. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Jake felt the difference from his time in Coalition service. Everyone here understood the mission, no debates. No committees, no accord to slow them down, they were going to war. Real war, Admiral Kreshtar called 20 hours into their journey. The communication came through on official Coalition channels. Lisa took it in her ready room. She allowed Jake and Amy to listen in. Captain Jennings, the Admiral's voice was stiff. I am contacting you to deliver an official warning from the Coalition Council. Your fleet's movement toward Krell space has been detected. If you engage in hostile action without Coalition authorization, Earth will face severe consequences. Admiral, with respect, Earth no longer recognizes Coalition authority in military matters. That is not your decision to make. You are one captain. Your government has made a mistake born of grief and anger. Do not compound it with violence. Admiral, do you know what humans call it when someone kills our children? Lisa's voice was ice. We call it an act of war, and we respond accordingly. The Accord provides mechanisms for response. Proper channels exist. Those channels take months. We don't have months. Every day we wait is another day the Krell can attack. If you do this, there is no turning back. The Coalition will be forced to treat humanity as a hostile force. That's a choice you'll have to make, Admiral. Liberty out, the communication ended. Jake saw Lisa's hands shaking slightly. She noticed him watching and steadied them. Do you think we're doing the right thing? She asked quietly. I think we're doing the only thing, Jake replied. The Coalition had their chance. They chose process over people, and if we're wrong, if this makes everything worse, then at least we went down fighting instead of waiting for permission to defend ourselves. Lisa was silent for a moment. Then she straightened and walked back to the bridge. All ships, maintain course, activate combat protocols. We hit them in 16 hours. The fleet crossed into Krell space without ceremony. No hails, no warnings. No 3-day evacuation notices. The first the Krell knew of their arrival was when the Liberty and 5 other human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel 300 kilometers from the Draken 3 military station. All batteries, fire at will, Lisa ordered. The station never had a chance to respond. Human railguns opened up first, kinetic rounds traveling at relativistic speeds. Then missiles, hundreds of them, each one guided by AI systems that Coalition technology couldn't match. Then energy weapons, burning through the station's shields in seconds. The entire engagement lasted 4 minutes. 40,000 Krell military personnel died before most of them knew they were under attack. The station broke apart in a silent explosion that lit up the darkness of space. All ships jump to secondary positions, Lisa commanded. We need to be gone before their response fleet arrives. The human ships vanished back into faster-than-light travel, leaving only debris behind on the Starbourne hundreds of light years away. Admiral Kreshtar watched the sensor recordings of the attack. His bridge crew stood in shocked silence. They gave no warning, someone whispered. They destroyed a military installation in 4 minutes, another officer said. That's impossible. Scan the debris field, Kreshtar ordered. I want to know how many survivors. The scanning officer worked for several minutes, then looked up, his face pale. Admiral, there are no survivors. None. The humans targeted life support, command centers, and escape pod bays simultaneously. They didn't just destroy the station. They made sure nobody could escape. Dr. Nathan Brooks, still aboard as a civilian observer, spoke from the back of the bridge. You wanted to know how humans fight wars, Admiral. Now you're seeing it. We don't just win battles. We eliminate the enemy's ability to fight back. This is barbarism, Kreshtar said. This is slaughter. No, Nathan replied quietly. This is war, human war. And this is just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, human strike groups hit 17 Krell military targets, shipyards, supply depots, command stations, defensive platforms. Every attack followed the same pattern. No warning, maximum force. No survivors among military personnel. The Krell Empire, which had spent 3,000 years fighting by Accord rules, had no defense against an enemy that ignored every convention of civilized warfare. Their military doctrine assumed enemies would announce their intentions, allow time for response, and limit their violence to acceptable levels. Humans did none of these things. On the 10th day, the Krell High Command sent a message to Earth. They invoked the Accord. They demanded negotiation. They asked for terms. President Helen York's response was broadcast across the galaxy. You attacked our people. You killed our children. You thought the Coalition would protect you. You were wrong. We have no interest in negotiation. Surrender your military forces and submit to occupation, or we will continue destroying your ability to make war. You have 24 hours to decide. The Krell refused. They were an empire 3,000 years old. They had never surrendered in their history. Pride would not allow it. 20-4 hours later, human forces began the assault on Krell colonies. Major Ryan Pierce led the fighter squadrons from the carrier Valiant. His group of 30 small craft approached the Krell colony of Helios Prime, home to 5 million Krell citizens and a major military garrison of 200,000 soldiers. Valiant actual to all wings, Ryan said over the comm system. Remember the mission, military targets only. Civilians are not the enemy here. Copy that, actual, his pilots responded. The attack began at dawn. Human fighters swept through Krell air defenses like they weren't there. The Krell expected large bomber formations, easy to track and intercept. Instead, they got small, fast fighters using tactics no coalition species had seen before. Ryan's targeting computer marked the military command center. He armed his missiles and fired. On the ground below, Krell soldiers scrambled to their defensive positions. They had trained for attack according to Accord rules, orbital bombardment that they could shelter from. Slow advances they could prepare for, not strike craft. Moving faster than their sensors could track, hitting targets with precision that seemed impossible. The command center exploded. Secondary explosions followed as ammunition depots and fuel reserves ignited. Ryan pulled up and checked his displays. All around the colony, other strike groups were hitting their targets: power plants, communications arrays, weapons factories. Actual, this is Wing 3. We've got civilian evacuation in progress near Target 7. Breaking off attack on that target. Confirmed, Wing 3. Mark it for ground forces. Move to secondary targets. This was the human way. Brutal but not blind. Violent but not random. They came to destroy the Krell military, not to massacre civilians. But they came fast, hard, and without mercy for those who resisted. By sunset, Helios Prime had fallen. The military garrison had been destroyed. The colonial government had surrendered. Human ground forces were securing the territory. Casualties: Krell military, 53,000. Krell civilian, 400. Human forces, 20-2. Admiral Kreshtar studied the battle reports in his ready room. Dr. Nathan Brooks sat across from him, looking older than his years. Explain this to me, Kreshtar said. Your people claim to be defending themselves, yet they attack with overwhelming force. They destroy military targets so completely that surrender is impossible. They move so fast that negotiation cannot. The Krell refused to surrender. Instead, they called for help from their allies and prepared for a long war. They expected the coalition to eventually intervene and force humanity to follow the Accord. They believed they could hold out until galactic pressure brought Earth back under control. They were wrong about everything. President Helen York made another broadcast, this one directed at the Coalition Council. We have been asked to halt our operations against the Krell Empire. We decline. We have been threatened with sanctions and isolation. We accept those consequences. Some of you have called us barbarians. Perhaps you are right. But we are barbarians who protect our own. The Krell will surrender, or they will be defeated. There's no third option. We invite any coalition observers who wish to witness our actions to do so. We have nothing to hide. Admiral Kreshtar took her up on the offer. Along with representatives from 6 other coalition species, he boarded a human ship to observe the war firsthand. Dr. Nathan Brooks accompanied them. They were assigned to the carrier Valiant, commanded by Captain Greg Stone. The ship was preparing for the assault on the Krell colony world of Drakter, a planet of 20 million Krell and a military garrison of 400,000. Welcome aboard, Captain Stone said as they came aboard. He was a man in his 50s with tired eyes. I've been ordered to give you full access to our operations. You'll see everything we do. Why? Kreshtar asked. Why allow us to observe? Because someone needs to remember what happens when you push humans too far. Someone needs to be able to tell the story. They were given quarters near the observation deck. On the first night, Nathan found Kreshtar staring at the tactical displays showing the approaching fleet. 20 human ships, carrying 15,000 ground troops. "We expect this battle to last months," Kreshtar said. "Draktor has extensive fortifications. The garrison is well-trained and well-supplied. Even with your aggressive tactics, a planetary assault should take considerable time." "You're thinking like a coalition commander," Nathan replied. "Worried about casualties, about infrastructure, about the cost of victory. And you do not worry about these things? We worry. But we worry more about losing, so we'll pay whatever price is necessary to win." The assault began at dawn. Kreshtar and the other observers watched from the Valiant's command center. They expected orbital bombardment first, softening defenses over days or weeks. Instead, the human ships did something no coalition fleet would consider. They flew directly into the atmosphere. "That's impossible," one of the observers said. "Capital ships cannot operate in atmosphere. The stress would tear them apart." "Human ships can," Nathan said quietly. "We built them too. Because sometimes you need to bring overwhelming force right to the enemy's doorstep." The ships descended through clouds of anti-aircraft fire. Krell defense systems hammered them with everything available. Human shields held, barely. Armor plating glowed red from repeated hits. But the ships kept coming. At 2,000 meters altitude, they opened their cargo bays. Thousands of drop pods fell like rain. Each one carried 4 soldiers in powered armor. They hit the ground going 200 kilometers per hour, absorbing impacts that would kill unarmored troops. Then they were up and moving, weapons firing. Sergeant Ben Hayes led one of the assault teams hitting the main garrison. His squad of 8 soldiers advanced through the Krell defensive lines like they weren't there. Powered armor gave them strength. Sensors gave them perfect awareness. Training gave them coordination that seemed telepathic. "Contact, 200 meters, Ben reported. "Krell heavy weapons team, taking them out." His squad moved as one unit, suppressing fire from the left. Flanking movement on the right. Precision grenade strike in the center. The Krell position disappeared in an explosion. Ben's squad kept moving. "This is insane," one of the observers said, watching the tactical feeds. "They're advancing directly into fortified positions. They should be suffering massive casualties." "They're not advancing," Nathan explained. "They're overwhelming." "There's a difference." On the ground, the Krell garrison tried every defensive tactic they knew, prepared positions, coordinated fire. Counterattacks, nothing worked. The humans moved too fast, hit too hard, adapted too quickly. Within 6 hours, the outer defense ring was broken. Within 12 hours, the garrison command surrendered. By sunset, the entire planet was under human control. Admiral Kreshtar reviewed the casualty reports in silence. Krell military losses: 53,000 dead, 47,000 wounded, 300,000 captured. Krell civilian losses: 400 dead, mostly from artillery fire. Human losses: 23 dead, 97 wounded. "How?" Kreshtar asked. "How do you achieve casualty ratios like this?" Captain Stone answered. "Because we train harder. We equip better, we plan better. And we're willing to take risks that you would never accept. Those drop pod landings? 10% chance of catastrophic failure on each pod. But we did it anyway because it gave us surprise and speed. You sacrificed your own soldiers. We risked them, there's a difference, and they volunteered. Every one of them knew the odds. This is madness." "No," Stone said quietly. "This is how you win wars, not by being careful. By being effective." The occupation of Draktor began immediately. Human forces secured government buildings, power plants, and communication centers. Medical teams treated wounded Krell soldiers. Engineers began repairing damage from the battle. Sergeant Ben Hayes found himself in charge of a sector containing 50,000 Krell civilians. They watched him and his soldiers with obvious fear. Ben understood. They had just witnessed humans do things that should be impossible. "Listen up," he told his squad. "We're here to keep the peace, not to terrorize people. Anyone caught abusing civilians answers to me. Clear? Clear, Sergeant, his soldiers responded, but keeping the peace meant enforcing rules. When a group of Krell resistance fighters attacked a supply convoy, Ben's response was swift and brutal. They tracked the fighters back to their base. Stormed it with overwhelming force. No negotiations. No warnings. Within minutes, the resistance cell was destroyed. Word spread quickly. Don't fight the humans. They don't negotiate. They don't show mercy to combatants. But they also don't hurt civilians who stay peaceful. It was a harsh lesson. But it was effective. Back on the Valiant, the Coalition observers watched as human forces consolidated control of 6 colony worlds in 3 weeks. Admiral Kreshtar sat in the observation deck, trying to process what he was seeing. Your species is destroying the Krell Empire, he said to Nathan. Systematically, efficiently, without hesitation. Yes, Nathan agreed. Do you feel no shame, no guilt? We feel both. But we feel them later, after the war is won. Right now we feel determination. I have seen terrible things in my 400 years, Kreshtar said slowly. I have seen planets burn and civilizations fall, but I have never seen anything like this. Your people fight with a precision that terrifies me. You know exactly how much force to use, where to strike, when to stop. It's not blind rage. It's calculated destruction. That's what makes it effective, Nathan said. Rage would be easier to counter. This is disciplined violence. It's worse because we're choosing to do this, not losing control. And what happens when the Krell surrender? What then? Then we stop, we rebuild, we help them recover. We prove that we're more than our capacity for violence. And if they do not surrender? Nathan was silent for a moment. Then we keep going until they have no choice. That's the terrible part, Admiral. We're willing to continue this all the way to the end if we have to. The Krell thought we would give up. They were wrong. Humans don't give up when our families are threatened. We double down. The Coalition Council met in emergency session. The debate lasted 3 days. Some species argued for intervention, for forcing humanity to stop. Others argued that the Krell had brought this on themselves. In the end, they voted to do nothing. The risk of confronting humanity was too great. If humans could destroy the Krell this easily, what could they do to other Coalition species? The galaxy watched and learned a new kind of fear. On the 35th day of the war, human forces surrounded the Krell homeworld. 50 ships in orbit. 200,000 ground troops ready to deploy. The entire might of Earth's military focused on one planet. Captain Lisa Jennings, now commanding the fleet group, sent a message to the Krell High Command. This is your last chance to surrender. Your colonies have fallen, your military is broken. Your people are suffering, end this now, and we will help you rebuild. Continue fighting, and we will take your homeworld by force. You have 24 hours. The Krell leadership met in their capital. They argued about honor and pride and 3,000 years of never surrendering. They talked about the shame of defeat. Then Agent Kyle Sanders released the information he had gathered. Messages between Krell leaders showing they knew they were beaten weeks ago. Showing they chose to keep fighting not for their people, but for their own pride. Showing they lived in luxury while soldiers died and civilians starved. The Krell population saw the messages. They rioted. They stormed government buildings. They demanded their leaders surrender. On the 43rd day of the war, the Krell Empire surrendered unconditionally. Admiral Kreshtar watched the surrender ceremony and felt something he had never felt before. Not fear exactly. Something deeper. An understanding that everything war ended on a cold morning in the Krell capital. Their leaders signed the surrender documents under human guard. No ceremony, no grand speeches, just signatures on paper and the understanding that an empire had fallen. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the room where it happened. He wore his Earth uniform now, not Coalition blue. Around him, other human officers watched silently as 3,000 years of Krell independence came to an end. Final casualty count. Krell military, 2,400,000 dead. Krell civilian, 300,000 dead. Human military, 8,000 dead. Human civilian, 2,000 dead, all from the original attacks that started the war, the numbers told the story. Humanity had fought a war the galaxy considered impossible and won it with efficiency that terrified everyone watching. Admiral Kreshtar approached Jake after the ceremony. The Xylothian looked older somehow, despite his long lifespan. "Commander Morrison," he said, then corrected himself. "I apologize. You hold a different rank now." "Still just Commander," Jake replied. "I never wanted a promotion. Just wanted to protect my people." "You did that. Perhaps too well." Kreshtar gestured to the window overlooking the Krell capital. "The Coalition Council wishes to put your species on trial for war crimes, violations of the Accord of Civilized Warfare, excessive use of force, failure to allow proper negotiation periods. We never signed the accord." That is what President York is arguing. She says humanity operated under its own rules of engagement, not coalition law. She's right. We never agreed to fight wars your way. You assumed we did. Kreshtar was silent for a moment. "I have spent 400 years believing that civilized species must limit warfare, that rules and protocols protect everyone. Now I am not certain. Your species won in 43 days what would have taken the Coalition years, possibly decades. And we did it with a tenth of the casualties you would have suffered," Jake added, "because we didn't drag it out. We hit hard and ended it fast. But at what cost to your souls? I have watched your soldiers, Commander. Many of them seem changed by what they did here." Jake thought about Sergeant Ben Hayes, who had resigned the day after the surrender. About Major Ryan Pierce, who now woke up screaming from nightmares. About the thousands of human soldiers who had done what was necessary and would carry those memories forever. "War has a cost," Jake said quietly. "We pay it. That's part of being human. We do terrible things when we must, and then we live with what we've done." "And you believe this is better than our way?" "I believe every human child who is alive today because we ended this war quickly would say yes. I believe every Krell civilian who didn't die in a years-long conflict would agree. Your way is cleaner. Ours is faster. Pick your poison." The Coalition Council met 2 weeks later to decide humanity's fate. Representatives from 147 species gathered to debate what should be done about Earth. Dr. Nathan Brooks attended as Earth's representative. The charges were read. Unauthorized military action. Refusal to follow Accord protocols. Excessive force resulting in massive casualties. Destruction of military and civilian infrastructure beyond acceptable limits. Nathan stood to deliver Earth's defense. He looked at the assembled representatives and spoke plainly. "Everything you accuse us of is true. We acted without coalition authorization. We ignored the accord. We used overwhelming force. We did all of this deliberately and without apology. And we would do it again." Shocked silence filled the chamber. "You want to know why? Because your system failed us. The Krell attacked our colonies 5 times over 6 weeks. Your response was to form committees, to debate, to plan operations that would take months. Meanwhile, our people died, including 147 children who were too slow to evacuate a school." Nathan pulled up images of those children. Their faces filled the screens around the chamber. "These are the people your accord failed to protect. So we protected them ourselves. Yes, we were brutal. Yes, we were fast. Yes, we killed many Krell soldiers. But we ended a war that could have dragged on for years under your rules. We saved lives by being willing to take them quickly." "You violated every principle of civilized warfare," one representative argued. "Civilized," Nathan repeated. "You keep using that word? Let me tell you about human civilization. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other before we reached the stars. Hundreds of wars? Millions dead. We learned that long wars cause more suffering than short ones. That limited wars often become total wars eventually. That sometimes the most humane thing you can do is fight so hard and so fast that the enemy surrenders quickly." "That is barbarism," another representative said. "Maybe, but it's effective barbarism. And when our children are dying, we care more about effectiveness than appearances. The vote took 3 days. In the end, the coalition chose not to formally charge humanity with war crimes. The proceeding was too dangerous. If they put Earth on trial, they would have to explain why the Accord failed to prevent the Krell attacks in the first place. Instead, they did something else. They amended the Accord to include a new provision. Species could opt out of Accord protections and limitations. But if they did, other species could choose not to engage with them in any warfare. It was a compromise that satisfied no one and everyone. Humanity remained in the coalition, but on its own terms. Captain Lisa Jennings took command of the occupation forces in Krell space. She had expected resentment, maybe resistance. Instead, she found something else. The Krell people, now free of their corrupt leadership, began rebuilding with unexpected enthusiasm. Human engineers helped restore infrastructure. Human medics treated wounded. Human advisors helped establish new government. "Why are you helping us?" a Krell civilian asked Lisa one day. "Your people destroyed our military. Killed our soldiers? Why not just leave us to suffer?" "Because we're not monsters," Lisa replied. "We fought you because you attacked our people and wouldn't stop. Now you've stopped. So we help you recover. That's the deal. I do not understand your species. You wage total war. Then you rebuild those you defeated. It's complicated. We can be violent when we must. But we can also be kind when the violence ends. Both are true at the same time." The Krell struggled to understand this. Their culture had no framework for an enemy who destroyed you completely and then helped you stand up again. But slowly, they began to accept it. 6 months after the war ended, Earth announced the creation of a new organization, the Terran Defense Coalition. It was open to any species that wanted protection but couldn't rely on the regular. Coalition's slow response times, 12 species joined immediately. More followed over the next year. They all had the same reasoning. If someone attacked them, they wanted humans responding, not committees debating. Admiral Kreshtar was one of the first coalition officers to request transfer to this new organization. He wanted to learn human military doctrine, to understand how they thought about warfare. Jake Morrison, now a colonel, was assigned to teach him. "I still believe your methods are too violent," Kreshtar said during one of their sessions. "Too focused on destruction." "Maybe," Jake agreed. "But they work. And in the end, isn't that what matters? We protect people. We end threats quickly. We don't let wars drag on for years, at the cost of massive casualties. Massive enemy casualties. Our casualties are lower because we train harder and fight smarter. We're not trying to negotiate. We're trying to win, and after you win, then we help rebuild. Because we're not trying to destroy civilizations, just defeat militaries that threaten us." Kreshtar thought about this. "You realize the galaxy will never fully trust you now. They know what you are capable of. Good, trust is earned. Fear is given. We'll take the fear for now and earn trust later. That is a very human perspective. It's kept us alive this long." 1 year after the war, President Helen York addressed both Earth and the Coalition. Her speech was broadcast across the galaxy. "We did not want to show the universe what humans are capable of in war. We tried to adapt to your ways, to follow your rules. But when following those rules meant watching our children die, we made a choice. We chose our people over your approval. We chose effectiveness over civilization. And we won a war that everyone thought was impossible." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "Some of you call us barbaric. You may be right. But we are barbaric in defense of peace. We are violent in protection of the innocent. We are brutal so that our children can be safe. That is who we are. If you can accept that, we will be your strongest allies. If you cannot, we will leave you in peace. But never forget what happens if you mistake our patience for weakness. Never forget what happens if you harm our families. We tried to warn the Krell. They did not listen. Do not make their mistake." The speech became known as the Declaration of Human Nature. Some species were horrified by it. Others were secretly relieved. At least now they knew where they stood with humanity. 2 years after the war, Jake Morrison sat in a bar on a neutral station with Admiral Kreshtar. They had become unlikely friends, the human commander and the alien admiral who had once opposed each other. "I received interesting news today," Kreshtar said. The Krell governed.